Hey everybody. So we have finished verifying with our basic trig identities with the Pythagorean identities, the quotient identities, and the reciprocal identities. All right, so now to further our understanding, we're throwing in more identities here. We're going to talk about sum and difference identities, but we're going to do that with the cosine, do that with sine, and we're going to do that with tangent. So just those three, sine, cosine, and tangent of sum and difference. So in other words, we're dealing with uh, angles that we can actually either add them together to get the number that we need or subtract to get the number that we need. So it'll make more sense when we get to the actual problems with it and everything. So here is the actual identities. And as you see in the book, in our textbook, it actually does all of these plus or minus. So in other words, it gives us the cosine with a plus or minus here, and then here a plus, a minus and plus here. But what I did was to break it apart so you can see them separately so it doesn't look confusing. Same thing for sine. They're normally together in our textbook, but I broke them apart so they don't look confusing. Now here, you're going to have to remember these formulas. But the things to remember when it comes to cosine is our cosines stay together, whether they're positive, adding or subtracting. Cosines stay together, and sines stay together. So the cosine x plus y, so that's cosines and cosines together, sines together, but it just changes your sign. The sign just changes. Same thing for the cosine here with subtraction. Only thing is the sign changes. Your cosines stay together, your sines stay together. Now the sine is the one that switches up with cosine, sine, cosine, sine, or sine, cosine. So here, your sines and your cosines go together. And then here, your sines and cosines go together. And so with that though, so sine x cosine y, so it means this has to be sine y cosine x, so that way they can both have x's and y's for sines and cosines. And then our sines stayed the same here. So these are the same. And then also here, they stayed the same. So for these, really, it's not as bad as it looks because it's just dealing with sines and cosines. Just the cosines, they stay together for the cosine portion of it. Cosine x plus y or cosine x minus y. The cosines stay together, the sines stay together, and then the sign changes. For sine, the sines and cosines go together, sine and cosine, and the signs stay the same. So you're just going to have to figure out a way to remember that so that you know whenever the identity comes up or the rule happens to come up, we can actually just use it. All right, so those are the two rules that we have for sine and cosine so far. All right, and then now the next video is going to have our example of using one of these.